Hello, and thank you for joining me for a dose of virtual vitamin Z. My name is Sandy, and I'm an education specialist for the Detroit Zoological Society, where we celebrate and save wildlife every day. Today, we're going to learn a little bit about how the animal care team at the Detroit Zoological Society has to pay close attention to the animals who live here at the zoo to make sure that they understand how they're getting along with each other and how that they're feeling. The animal care team is focused on making sure that the animals at the Detroit Zoo have great welfare. And when we think about welfare, we're talking about mental, physical, and emotional needs. And we're thinking about those needs. That also means how they're interacting with other animals that they live with. So let's talk about that a little bit. So a lot of the animals who live here at the zoo live in large groups of animals. So like the chimpanzees, they live in a troop. So the animal care team have to keep a close eye on how the animals are interacting with each other to make sure that everyone's getting along. Now, chimpanzees can't speak the same language that you and I do. They speak a different language, or they use body language to communicate with each other. And it actually is something that the animal care team, after lots of close observation, they can start to read what the animals are saying to each other, and they can make sure that everything's going okay. This is also true for the lions and the tigers that live here at the zoo. They live in groups, so the two tiger boys and the lions live in a pride. So again, the animal care team have to keep a close eye on the animals and make sure that they're paying attention to how that they're getting along and what the animals are saying to each other. And this is really something else you need to think about, is that chimpanzees and big cats, they don't speak the same kinds of languages. So they speak with their bodies in different ways from each other. So the animal care team have to be well versed in animal body language across multiple species. Thinking about the bears as well. The bears live in the three grizzly boys, and the two polar bears live together as well. So keeping a close eye on that communication among the animals to make sure that everything's going okay. This also is important when we're working on husbandry training. So the positive reinforcement training that we've been talking about, I've often said that it's up to the animal if they want to participate, but if the animal care team doesn't know how to understand the body language of that animal, it is something that they can't understand that the animal's saying, hey, I'm done. So we're going to explore this, what it looks like with our companion animals. So if you joined us before, you have met my companion animals. You've met Abby, who is about 7 years old, Teddy, who's about 2, Max, who's about 12. We're going to have a special guest today, Nora. She's currently 4 years old. She lived with us for a little bit while her mom was recovering from a surgery. So here we can see my four companion animals, and you can see them in a relaxed state. And it's important to know what an animal looks like when they're relaxed. So I want you to think about what you look like when you're relaxed. Your shoulders are relaxed, your jaw is nice and loose. And now I want you to think about when you're tense. Your shoulders are up by your ears, your jaw is tense, and your fists are clenched, right? That's what it looks like when you're stressed or tense. Maybe not to that extent, but I know that when my shoulders are creeping up towards my ears that I'm uncomfortable, and that's a good indication for me as a person. So we need to know what it looks like for our companion animals to make sure that we can understand what they're saying to us. So let's take a closer look at the four animals in front of us. So Teddy and Abby, they both have flappy ears. And so the ears are kind of flat back, but you can see that their ears look a little different. Abby's ears, you can see a little bit of the inside of them. Teddy's ears flop forward. This is when they're completely relaxed. Abby, Teddy, and Max, when they're comfortable, their mouths are closed. Max and Nora, they have ears that stand up, and when they're comfortable, their ears are facing you. Nora is most comfortable when her mouth is open. So those are all going to be really important things as we're going through and looking at different situations that my companion animals are in. Again, the animal care teams at the Detroit Zoo, they know what the animals that they work with every day, what they look like when they're comfortable, and they know what they look like when they're uncomfortable. So knowing that is a great baseline to move forward. So here's a picture of Nora, who is on her belly, and Abby. And so if you look at this picture first off, you might see, oh gosh, Nora's baring her teeth at Abby, and Abby maybe seems like she's not super into it. But if you look at her body language, let's start with Abby. Abby's legs are really relaxed, and her head is in a kind of a relaxed position, and she's putting her mouth towards Nora's mouth. Now, Nora, she is super wiggly, which is why she's not in focus, and you can see her belly. So things that we're looking for with companion animals who are dogs, we want to look for wiggly, and if they present their belly, that means that they're at least comfortable. Here's another picture of a Nora and Abby. So you can see Abby here. She's pulling her head back a little bit, but a Nora is in a play bow. And so a play bow is when dogs lift their back ends up and their front paws are on the ground. And that's saying to each other, hey, I want to play. Do you want to play? And that's how they communicate with each other. I have a quick video of Abby and Teddy when Teddy was a puppy, a little bit younger. And you can see a really quick play bow here from Teddy. So there's a quick play bow. Abby and Teddy are playing. And now you can see here, they finish playing and they shake off. So it's kind of like an agreement. It's kind of like a handshake, like, hey, we're done playing. So that's, again, the communication between the two animals. So it's important to understand that every animal does communicate different with other animals. And that's something that the animal care team at the Detroit Zoological Society keeps in mind as well. Now let's look at some uncomfortable behavior. As their companion, it's my responsibility to make sure that my companion animals are comfortable. So if we see here's baby Teddy and here's Abby. Now, if we look at Abby, her leg is kind of tense. So if you think about back to when she was playing with Nora, her leg wasn't tense. It's really tense here. Her paw is bent. If she was standing up, that would be a paw pop. So if her paw was up, and she is whale eyeing Teddy. So she's looking out at him with the side of her eye, and you can see that. So she is not comfortable. So it's my job as her companion to remove her from that situation or remove the thing that's making her stressed out from that situation. So I went and I moved Teddy and distracted him with something else. This is something that's kind of interesting. So if you look at the two dogs in front of us, Abby has a bone and Teddy has a bone. And they're telling us two very different things. So let's start with Abby. So if we look at Abby, her head is rested on the blanket. She's mildly chewing on the thing, or on the bone, and her paws are relaxed. You can tell she's looking at me, but there's no intensity behind that stare. Now, if you look at Teddy, his paws are very tense. They're very straight. He is whale eyeing me. So you can see that white of his eye right there. He's not super pleased that I'm coming near him with this bone when he's got this bone. So these are two situations where dogs have very similar objects, but it's important that I understand Teddy is telling me he doesn't want to share. So that tells me as his companion that if I have 3 dogs, I need to provide equal treats to all of them so they can all have what they need so that they don't feel they have to resource guard or have to share their objects. When we first got Max was a rescue. He came to us he was about 7 years old. And you can see here, this is one of the very first days that Max came home with us, and I was still learning Max. But if you remember that picture of Max, his ears were straight forward. You'll notice his ears are kind of pointing out here. He's not super comfortable. His jaw is really tense here. You can see a little bit of the white of his eye, and that paw is getting into a paw pop. So that tells me that, hey, he's not super comfortable. And actually, it was just because he was new to me and he had not really spent any time with me before we adopted him, and he was not comfortable. He got more comfortable as he spent more time with me. Here's another picture of Max. So if we're looking, we can see his ears are to the side again, not super happy. He's sticking out his tongue a little bit, and he's like, meh. And he's got the paw pop there. And you can actually see his back is really kind of stiff. Again, thinking about relaxed and wiggly versus stiff. Now, it's my job as his companion to figure out what the problem is and fix it. So let me see if you can help me figure out what the problem is. If you guess that Teddy's really close to him, that is exactly what it is. So I actually moved Teddy away so that Max had some space to be able to enjoy his treat. If you have companion animals at home, you can do similar things like this to help them, to be able to help identify what might be causing them some stress and see if you can help figure out what you can do to make it better. These are things that we do with the animals who live here at the zoo. We want to think about what makes them happy, what stresses them out, and try to minimize the stress and increase the happy. So what we're going to do is we're going to need a pencil and a notebook, and you're going to take some notes. So I'm going to show you some notes that I took of Max when he first joined us. So I made some observations of him. His paw was popping, his eye, he was whale-eyeing me in tense ears. I'm going to let you know I was only looking for things that told me he was uncomfortable so that I could figure out what he needed to be comfortable. Potential cause was Teddy was too close and Max had a bone. Another observation was that a whale eye, and Max had a bone and I was approaching him. And then there was a paw pop. And Max was waiting for a cookie with other dogs. So you may notice there's some trend here with the potential cause. Now, I can't make an assumption based off of 3 data points, but I can start to try some things out. So what I did was I tried giving Max treats in his bed and only in his bed. And that actually is where he's happiest to have his treats, because he's not concerned that the other dogs are going to take them. And so he's relaxed and he's able to enjoy those treats. So doing these types of activities with your companion animals at home helps build critical thinking skills. So you're looking for trends, you're looking for things that that are happening consistently. You're forward planning. So you're trying to think through like, hey, it might not be great that Max likes to keep his toys away from other dogs. So let's try to plan out what this could look like and how we can work through this. And patience, because you know what? Our companion animals are in charge, just like the animals who live here at the zoo. They tell us what they're ready for and what they need, and we have to be patient to be able to listen to them. Thanks so much for joining me for a dose of virtual vitamin Z. If you'd like to see more, go ahead and join us at the Detroit Zoo's website at detroitzoo.org under Education Online Learning. Have a great day.